Hi guys, it's Charlie. Today let's go in here and look at the halvening and the effects of it and why I think Bitcoin's going to become harder and harder for most everybody to get in the world because of this simple halvening thing that many people don't understand because it's somewhat what would I say? It doesn't hold a lot of common sense compared to where we're at now and how they just print money at whim, quantitative easing and money printing and etc. So here's an article that came out recently in Bloomberg before the halvening in May of 2020, but I think it bears the point. It needs to be reiterated because go in here and kind of get a better understanding. On the first bar of this chart, you'll see 0. That's where the miners, the people that create the Bitcoins by securing the network, they were receiving 50 Bitcoins per block that they mined, and that was back in 2009 up until November of 2012. And that was the first halvening, and the halvening went from getting 50 Bitcoins per block down to 25. And this is all written into the software code, and it's all in there for everybody to see. And this is planned, and this is the first 2 of 64 halvenings. And they plan to keep having these halvenings going forward, and it's going to make it harder and harder for people to obtain massive amounts of Bitcoin because I think it's just going to drive the price way up. So November of 2012, that was the first halvening. It went from 25, and then the reward went down to 12.5. So that was July of 2016. Then the most recent one we just had was May of 2020, and it went from 12.5 down to 6.25. So you can kind of see this trend that's happening now. And this trend is going to continue going forward. For, like I said, there's 64 planned halvenings, and this will go out somewhere they expect the last block of Bitcoin to be mined in the year 2140, or roughly thereabouts. 2138 I've also heard, but it depends on the hash rate, and it depends on a bunch of stuff. And some of the people are out there saying, well, this is the government's way to get everybody into a digital currency so they can track and monitor everything. Well, if that's the case, they're going to have a hard time doing it because Bitcoin is not controlled by anybody, and they haven't obviously looked at the source code or the white paper to see how Bitcoin works. Those people, I think, are generally just mocking some fear out there to keep you out of this stuff because the people that are truly wealthy are getting into Bitcoin, and they're getting into it at this point in a big way, quietly, and they're not making any fanfare about it. They're not making any noise about it. They're just quietly getting into it because I think it's going to be a great place to store your wealth going forward because it looks like the federal government, at least of the United States, is going to continue to print and print and print. And we're already up to $26 trillion in debt that will never be repaid back because there's no way to repay it back. Most people don't have no concept of what $1 trillion is, so I won't even go into it, but it's mind-boggling if you go do the research. It's like 1 million seconds ago was like, I don't remember the formula, but something like a day ago. 1 billion seconds ago was like a month ago, and 1 trillion seconds ago was like you can't even comprehend it. It's like hundreds and hundreds of years. So we've got a big debt problem, and it ain't going to get resolved. I think the bubble's going to get burst, and there's going to be a lot of people holding paper that's going to be worthless. So I think going forward, if you don't already own your Bitcoins, it's going to get harder and harder for you to own an entire Bitcoin just because of the fact that it's going to get harder and harder to get. And as somebody said once, well, they need to make more of them. Well, that ain't going to happen. It's written into the code. There's going to be 21 million Bitcoins, and that's it. Permanent. Done. End of story. So going forward, there ain't going to be any more Bitcoins made. So some of the people are saying, they're crying that, well, that's not enough for everybody to get some. Well, actually it is. The problem is you may not be able to own an entire Bitcoin going forward. You may get a partial Bitcoin. Of course, you can always start getting involved with Bitcoin by just investing in the dollar. You could buy a few Satoshis or a fraction of a Satoshi, and that will get you started in this world of Bitcoin. But for everybody to own Bitcoin, it probably ain't going to happen. Those days are long gone. The train left the station a long time ago because there's 7.5 billion people in the world. And maybe, I'd say conservatively, maybe there's 100,000 people that actually own Bitcoin at this point in time. So that leaves about 7.4 billion people, and roughly 85% of all the Bitcoins of the world right now are owned by somebody. So that means there's another 2.5 million Bitcoins for the rest of the world, basically 7.4 billion people to own. And there's going to be a lot of people fighting over those to buy them. And so I think what it's going to do, this is my personal opinion, this is not investment advice, this is purely my guess, but I think it's going to drive a lot of people into Bitcoin, and they're going to be fighting over it, and the price is just going to go way, way, way up because it's extremely rare. And as you can see, it's going to get harder and harder to get every 4 years. It's going to get harder and harder for you to obtain some Bitcoins. Anyway, with that today, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe link here in the lower right hand corner. If you want to learn more how to get started in this great asset, which I believe is probably one of the most precious assets in the world going forward, it would be click the link below this video and you can get signed up for my free emails. With that, we will talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks and have a good one.